I have a question about pick word after the first phrase, and then goes this sound, yeah? Do we have a down throw there or something like this? Or how do you like
his question pertains to a lick that uses economy picking. You guys know economy picking?
Yeah.
Yeah? More or less? It's very useful when crossing strings because with straight alternate picking, you have down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Even when you're moving downward, you might be having an upstroke. It's the opposite movement, you know? So with economy picking, you use the downstroke to go to the next string, okay? So if I did a 3-note per string scale, like alternate picking down, up, down, up. With economy picking, you have down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up. So you so it becomes useful when you're sweep picking, because you can play multiple notes on the same string. So if I did a lick like I'm going down, 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 up, down, 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 up. It's a efficient way of producing notes. So, there's a guitar player named Guitarmanic. He has a video all about economy picking. So, if you're interested in getting more advanced with it, it's a really good song.
what's your name?
Guitarmanic. He's Australian. He's like the sweep picking master. Yeah. So yeah, but that lick, you're playing it correctly.
Okay.
Yeah. Good job. Maybe we'll do the other question.
Yeah.
So you want to know what bands and guitar players I like too? Or?
Yeah, maybe like hands or some ideas you come to.
Okay. Well, I'll talk about inspiration because I listen to a lot of music that isn't guitar music and a lot that isn't metal.
Yeah.
But when you bring those inspirations to metal, it sounds really fresh, you know? So jazz has become a big source of my sense of harmony.
Like going out those things.
Like what?
Like going out those things.
Yeah. I use a lot of modal harmony from melodic minor. So I'll show you some of the tonalities I like a lot. Like even if we're in the major scale, I really like certain intervals like Lydian sound, sharp 11. I like augmented major triads. So it's like if you did a... So you take the fifth and you raise it so you have a unique sound there, you know? So I use that often. Also, let's see. Sometimes I like to take a single chord. It doesn't matter the voicing. Like, you know the song Wave a Baby? It's one voicing. You know? And I just move it around. Almost like purely creative, no rules. You know? I have a lot of examples in my music where I do the same thing. You have and it's one voicing in 3 different positions. So it's not like I'm using a key. I'm actually just creatively using one chord.
And arpeggios maybe you give them on chords or
The whole list, yeah.
okay.
So for some interesting arpeggios, if we go back to the Lydian thing. Multiple octaves. One arpeggio, multiple octaves. So that way, you're actually using the same notes. But on the guitar, it's ascending, it sounds great, you know? So, there are 4 notes. Same 4 notes. You know? And with that, I think of them as chords. So, sometimes I'll practice. Chords, and then from there I slowly work on single note of the same things. But yeah, I like this creative approach to chords because it almost sounds like constant key changes.
Yeah.
You know, if you do something like utilizing tension and almost a purely creative approach where I'm not necessarily doing, you know, you can do that stuff, but I think the sound of non-diatonic harmony is refreshing.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Like, and you don't expect next.
You don't expect it, but there's an art, because you don't want it to be random,
Yeah.
because that's not musical. But I think you obviously have an ear that is tuned to harmony, so maybe using this creative approach and then having a bit of taste so it doesn't sound totally random, but it does sound unexpected,
Yeah.
is a very cool approach.
Okay. So nice.
Yeah, good question. Cool. Do you have one? Just listening. Okay. We'll go to this side. Do you have one?
Yeah, I'm very interested in how you are doing the percussive taping, especially when you are using the low string and the double taping on the higher strings.
Okay. Tapping or percussive, like slap?
I don't know. I don't remember the name of the song, but you are doing both things at the same time. You are doing. You are pushing the lower strings with one hand, and doing double taping.
So maybe careful. Couple.
With that, it's having independence on each hand.
Yeah.
You should be able to produce a phrase with your left hand.
Could you try to do the same, but on the lower, on the higher strings?
It does. The tuning doesn't translate the same.
Yeah.
But you can
Yeah.
but you're not doing. So what I do is I try to figure out when my hands are happening together and when they are playing apart.
Apart, yeah.
So on the beat one, it's together. And then so it's pretty simple here. One chord per measure.
The sound is so clear. So do you use only a clean amp, clean preamp, or I hear the delay, a little bit of delay.
Yeah, which I can turn off too, because. Okay. So no delay now.
Yeah.
You know what helps? Compression.
Yeah.
I use compression for my cleans always. That way when you tap, it raises the volume of the tap strings.
Yeah.
It makes it sound more even. Because this technique can have a tendency to sound very, very dynamic. So having a good compression setting will make it sound smooth. Yeah, but then also practicing without this can make your technique better.
Yes.
And once you get it to where you're comfortable, you use the compression to make it closer to perfect.
Yeah.
But I would tap slowly with a clean tone and try to get sustained. Yeah, so. Like a metronome. Yeah. This way, I don't have to think about a scale or anything, but it's helping my coordination between both hands. And then, if you want to be very, very simple, don't even use this hand. Develop the clarity and strength on your left hand. Then bring in the right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm actually wondering, how does your practice routine look like? How do you combine practicing like music theory with practicing techniques, and how do you approach practicing new stuff, or generally daily practices? Like?
Okay, now I've been playing for 19 years, so my practice today is different than
So
it was.
how would you use tips for beginners? How you would say we, like novices, should practice when it comes to combining musical theory and techniques?
Okay, well, theory is a little different than technique. With technique, I would use a metronome and use slow to moderate tempo, and just work on your technique to a very easy tempo, and then slowly increase it. And you can actually combine your technical practice with your theoretical practice, because you can take a new scale, set the metronome. So say you want to run the major scale. You can also do it in different intervals, like or fourths. Right? Or fifths. Or sixths. Or sevenths. note to highest note, you're able to jump around intervallically. And then from there, knowing your fretboard, like this chord, C major, exists here. So I have C here, 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 I have C here. And you know what I mean? So I think a good practice is realizing the repetition in the fretboard and being able to push it all together. That way you're not just really good at that one shape, but then over here you don't know, you know? So shapes are actually helpful because it's like a map of the scale, you know? So that's actually how I combine my fretboard, through chords. In your chords you have scales and you have arpeggios. So with this system you can basically what I do is I try to arpeggiate each position, I try to play the scale in each position, and I try to link the chords together so that I have a map of the whole fretboard based on chords.
And do you include any kind of ear practice into your routines?
Yeah, but what I do is, when I was learning this, I would say to myself, okay, what makes a chord sound different than another chord, right? It's the intervals in the chord. So, like, with C major, this note, I try to say this is 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So then 6, 3, minor third, 5, 9.
So it's good to learn particular intervals by ear.
And the simple way is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 6, 5, 4, 3, 7, 9. You know what I mean? I would make little exercises. It's almost like A, B, C, you know. But eventually, it allows you to say, when you hear a chord, you know, you're able to. You become very used to isolating an interval because you've started to focus on them. So,
Thank you.
yeah. You have a question? Hey.
Honestly, I didn't prepare a question because I'm really a beginner. I just started 2 months ago. But I'd like to ask you, do you have any suggestions for who begins to play guitar?
Yeah.
General suggestion.
Okay, first suggestion is don't get overwhelmed because with the internet and YouTube and all the other amazing guitar players, you might feel like you'll never be. So sometimes it's good to not pay attention to someone who's been playing for 20 years if you feel like it's going to demotivate you. Do you know what I mean? Another suggestion is to maybe get a teacher because they can help you absorb the information in a structured way. Because if you're doing it yourself, it's like, oh, this mode, and oh, this thing, and oh, but you don't have a very coherent understanding of the information. Even if you're smart enough to teach yourself, sometimes it's helpful to have someone who's been teaching for a long time. They can guide you in a systematic way, you know? The other thing is to like, just have fun. If you get too frustrated with something, maybe just learn a song you really like. And just, because that's the point, right? To be able to make music. Yeah. And another thing is to write music, because I remember when I was a beginner, I used to write songs, and I wish I had them, because there's a certain purity with when you're just using your guitar in the beginning, you don't know everything about it, and I think there's something special about that. So don't be afraid to create music, even though you've only been playing for 2 months. Yeah.
It's about scaffold sweep at the beginning, yes. So we do have these moves, and then we have to go back few strings up. And do you start the second sequence with downstroke?
Downstroke or upstroke?
Yeah.
I don't really know. Hold on. You know the funny thing about that lick is if I play it here, it's just a minor triad. It's the same thing. But you know, I use a lot of. It sounds like sweeping, but sometimes I'm just hammering on. Yeah. But with sweeping in general, it's actually much harder to sweep at a moderate tempo than it is to sweep because it takes much more control. So it's taking sweeping outside of lead guitar and using it simply as a way of producing notes, you know? So sometimes that might be a good way to work on slow sweeping perfectly, maybe like 10 times or 15 times, very slow. It really helps to when you want to do it really fast. Your brain is learned, you know? I think it's a good approach. Maybe start slow, then do, I would call what you're saying speed burst. So, like that, right? And then try to go for the full speed, you know.
When you try to think about the rest of composition, you do it more like you try to imagine it in your head, or you looking for it on fretboard?
For me, it's helpful to put it into the computer.
Okay.
Yeah, because then you become a listener,
Yeah.
and you can play the part you have, and then imagine the next section. I use this pedal here. It's like a phrase sampler. So I can record myself and then have it loop, and that way I can think about new parts. So I'll do. Sometimes it's like improvisation until you decide on a phrase. So. Rhythmic accents. So like basically, it's like jamming with yourself. This way, it's instant, and you have a piece of music. Then you become the listener, you know, and you try to think of a new layer. And once you have that, you record it. So now you have two. You keep listening, and you really want to fill the space, you know. Now you have three parts. So for me, it's a perfect process to begin a composition. From there, I'll take those parts and put them into like Pro Tools or Ableton. Now I can see everything, and then I can create a larger arrangement. But this way is really cool because you don't stop your momentum. You can play, and you can continue off of the energy you're playing. You know.
How long you've been playing 6 strings before moving to 7 and then to 8? And do you have a special approach when adding a new string or even changing the tuning? Do you perceive the fretboard differently when, for example, going from standard to drop, or different tunings and different amount of strings?
It's a good question. I played 6 string for like 6 years, and then I got a 7 string, and I stayed on 7 string for probably another 6 years, 5 years, and then I've been playing 8 since then. So it's 1 string at a time. I think it's better. And then I kept my tuning the same for every 6, 7, and 8 because we were talking earlier about practicing, you know, and knowing all the positions to play maybe 1 chord. And me keeping my tuning the same means that I don't have to learn new shapes or anything like that. The other tip I have is that you know, scales are 7 notes until you end up at the same note that you started at. So there's a lot of repetition. So it's very smart to acknowledge the repetition in the fretboard because this way it doesn't look like an endless thing. It's actually just small chunks that repeat, you know? So when I work on arpeggios, for instance, I use symmetry. So I take a shape like, so let's say I want to do like a E minor 7 arpeggio. 1, flat 3, 5, 7, octave, flat 3, 5, 7, octave, flat 3, 5, 7. Same 4 notes. So I'm actually just repeating the same 4 notes, but actually I'm using 3 octaves in all the strings, but in my brain it's just 1 chunk that's duplicated. So that way it doesn't matter how many strings you have, you know, because you're aware of what's going on. So when you're learning, you know, try to connect the dots. Whenever you see repetition or symmetry, or whenever you can utilize duplicating the same fingering, you know, it really helps to shrink the fretboard for you.
Is your guitar custom made in USA or in Japan?
Japan.
Japan. Okay. And this is the same guitar than is serial produced?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Tosin Abasi signature guitar, and it's not specialized. It's the same one you can buy is what I use, because I think that's cooler, you know. This guitar has a Wenge neck. It's almost the wood normally used for bass guitars. It's unfinished too, so the feel is like raw wood, which I really like. And then the body is basswood, which is a very tonally neutral wood. It doesn't have too many lows or highs. It's almost flat. One of the best features I think is the pickups, which I designed with the Marzio. So they're the ionizers, but they're my signature pickup. I have some voicings here. You know, you can get a lot of different sounds out of it. wanted an 8-string guitar that wasn't just for heavy metal, you know, but one that could play shred and all that stuff. So the pickups, I think, were the most important part in having a versatile guitar. And then there's some pretty stuff on it. I like the gold and the inlays and all that. So, yeah, it's like the perfect 8-string guitar.
Yeah, it sounds powerful.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I hope so. You know, having your guitar set up to where there's a little bit of string interaction with the fret, you get a little bit metallic noise, but it sounds almost like piano, like clarity, you know, so that's helpful too.
How do you approach learning like finger picking
Finger picking.
and like combining picking with a pick and going then with like fingers
Oh,
like
yeah.
finger picking?
Yeah, I think it's helpful to learn classical guitar. Even if you just learn like 5 songs that are beginner to intermediate level classical compositions, it changes the way you play electric guitar. Classical guitar, because it uses an open right hand, allows you to do multiple voices at one time. So you can, you know, like voice leading and stuff like. Which is something if you're just holding a pick, you can't do. Classical guitar begins this way of phrasing because it's all like that, you know? So I think if you learn some classical, you'll find that once you go on your electric, you'll begin to bring it into your electric playing, you know?
So you still hold the pick and you use these 3 fingers for the
Yeah.
style?
Well, so you can play with just your hand if you want. I mean, but I find that when I do it like this, I come up with different phrases. Closer to lead playing a little bit, and then the option to use my fingers makes this in-between fingerstyle and lead guitar. There's a book called Hybrid Picking. That's what we call this technique, hybrid picking. And it's full of exercises. So maybe at the end I can give you the name of the author too. But that's how I learned to do it. It's really a very cool way to approach the guitar. It's different than what you normally do, you know? Yeah. All right.
At the videos, I saw you hardly use those 2 joints. You're just those 2 fingers look as if they didn't move.
Yeah.
So how do you do this?
Yeah, I think the more efficient you are with your technique, the smaller the movements. Like a rate.
This is a one continuous movement, right?
You can think of that way.
Something like
Yeah, you don't want to do that. Almost try to have the grip where your fingers are close together, closer, almost like
like
yeah,
this.
yeah. as you're producing more speed, you're actually forcing your fingers to move smaller distance, you know? So classical guitar helps with this too. It's very helpful because you learn to use your whole right hand. And then from there, it's just a modification to do the slap stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.